Welcome to this week's episode of Taiwan Tech Update, your weekly roundup of tech news stories from here in Taiwan, presented by me, Tomasz Koper, and Radio Taiwan International. Have you heard of people using AI as a pick-me-up when they're having a bad day? What about talking to a large language model as a replacement for real professional therapy? Does that sit right with you? Does that feel healthy? How do you feel about it? Why don't you lie down on the couch and tell me about your relationship with your mother? I am joking, of course, but the issue is very real and increasingly common. That's why this week I spoke to a Taiwan-based bilingual psychotherapist, Evon Chiu, about the role of LLMs for patients, the impact on the profession, and how much emotional intelligence we can expect from our artificial intelligence. Stick around to the second part of the show for that. But first, let's take a look at Taiwan-related tech news stories for the week of July 4th to July 10th. On Saturday, we heard from the Economic Ministry that more than 21,000 people have signed up for Taiwan's new AI Application Planner certification. It was launched in 2025, and you can try to get it 4 times a year for the entry level and twice a year at the intermediate level. According to Chiu Hui, a senior ministry official, around 40 to 50% of applicants pass. He said that the number of people interested in obtaining the certification reflects market demand, replacing the previous hot ticket, certifications related to net zero emissions. Now, this is not a programming or AI training certificate, but rather one that proves the applicant can use existing AI tools effectively and has some basic programming skills that can help improve business efficiency. Chiu said that this is a part of President Lai Ching-te's plan to turn Taiwan into an AI island by boosting adoption rates in industries. This is important for the government as Taiwan is still trailing behind the likes of Japan, South Korea, Singapore, and China in rankings of AI talent and business environment. That's why the Economic Ministry has trained around 800 AI consultants that will help small and medium enterprises enjoy the benefits of adopting AI, which have so far been mostly concentrated in the tech sector. On Monday, Academia Sinica, Taiwan's National Academy of Sciences, held its 36th Convocation of Academicians, a biannual event that brings together academics and officials to present institutional reports, give speeches, and hold panel discussions. In his speech at the opening ceremony, President Lai Ching-te said that developing a next-generation 20-qubit superconducting quantum computer in-house at Academia Sinica is a key part of the government's new 10 major AI infrastructure projects. Lai pledged funding and support to help Sinica achieve that goal. Also speaking at the ceremony was Academia Sinica's new president, epidemiologist, geneticist, former health minister, and former vice president of Taiwan, Chen Jianren. He said that in the current age of global technological competition, geopolitical restructuring, and challenges affecting all of us like climate change, population aging, and energy transition, scientific research can no longer be confined to a single discipline to solve complex problems. He said that Academia Sinica's remit is not just pursuing academic excellence, but providing effective solutions to societal challenges through integrating knowledge from different disciplines and conducting forward-looking research. In the future, Sinica will continue investing in key fields like quantum computing, net zero technologies, artificial intelligence, and advanced medicine. On Tuesday, the National Center for Instrumentation Research, which sits under the National Institutes of Applied Research, announced a breakthrough in two-dimensional or 2D material process equipment and inspection technology. With ever-decreasing transistor channel lengths, systems are more prone to experience short channel effects and tunneling leakages, which, to simplify, means that electrons take more erratic paths instead of going where we want them to. That obviously degrades an integrated circuit's performance and heat dissipation properties. This is commonly considered to be the end of Moore's law since it limits how small and dense we can make our integrated circuits. Enter 2D materials riding on a white horse. It turns out that by depositing a single atom layer of material like tungsten disulfide or molybdenum disulfide on top of the silicon, it is possible to prevent electrons from moving erratically, which improves performance and reduces power consumption. The National Center for Instrumentation Research says it has achieved a 100% continuous coverage of tungsten disulfide monolayer on a 6-inch wafer. It says their process overcame the commonly seen challenges like non-uniform distribution of the material and defects that appear during large area growth, demonstrating a high degree of uniformity and process stability. The center's Intelligent Coating Equipment Technology Division head, Chen Wei-jun, noted that when it comes to 2D materials, simply achieving good results is not enough. The critical question is whether the process can be scaled to large areas in a manner suitable for integration in mass-scale semiconductor manufacturing. On Thursday, DigiTimes reported that more sources are confirming price hikes in the semiconductor manufacturing business. TSMC notified its big clients, including Nvidia, Apple, and AMD, that they will be raising prices by 5 to 10% on 3, 5, and 7 nanometer products, while Samsung has hiked their prices for new customers by around 15% on selected 4 and 5 nanometer nodes and 8 nanometer automotive chips. The report says this suggests a shift in the foundry market away from price competition to win clients and toward a model shaped by supply, demand, and investment burden. It notes that in the past, new nodes would cost the most when they were first introduced and then gradually get cheaper as efficiency and yields improved. This meant that companies rarely, if ever, raised prices on older nodes. Now, the demand for chips is far greater than the available capacity, and development costs for the most advanced nodes and next-gen equipment keep going up. That means that node maturity is no longer as important in determining the price. But not everyone seems to have gotten the memo on the end of price cutting as a strategy for getting clients. DigiTimes reports that Japan's Rapidus is trying to break into the 2 nanometer market through competitive pricing, hoping to sell their chips at or below TSMC's prices. The company hopes to start mass production in the second half of next year and is reportedly already in talks with potential clients. Also on Thursday, Google held the 2026 Google Cloud Day in Taipei, where the company's Taiwan branch general manager Tina Lin said that in the future, Google will focus on AI healthcare and tech solutions that improve people's lives. She said Google established its office in the Taipei 101 building 20 years ago, and since then, Taiwan has witnessed many important milestones for the company, like the first Android phone, the Chromebook, and the launch of Google's first data center in Asia Pacific. In the next 20 years, then, the company will integrate its technologies and products to build a comprehensive and sustained AI-driven healthcare system to help Taiwan with problems like becoming a super-aged society, declining birth rates, the rise in chronic diseases, and labor shortages, which are a growing problem in healthcare. Google has partnered with the National Health Insurance Administration to build an AI model which helps physicians in diagnosing diabetes. Lin said Google plans to expand its cooperation with the administration to improve the prevention and diagnostics of other chronic illnesses. With increasing numbers of people relying on large language models for companionship and even mental health support, I wanted to explore the impact of this technology on the field and its practitioners. That's why this week I spoke with Evon, a Taiwan-based bilingual psychotherapist and the founder of the Taiwan Multicultural Counseling Association. And this is how our conversation went. Evon, how do you feel about people seeking out large language models, basically AI chatbots to help them through, difficult periods or even replace professional therapy?
Okay, this is a very good question. I actually think because the purpose of therapy is to the best interest of client to help them. And I actually think it's actually very helpful and empowering to clients. That's what I have been seeing. The reason I say that is because when people use those for example, ChatGPT, they actually feel their abilities during the process of using it. They can feel more in control. Like, oh, I can fix this. I'm not weak and I'm useful. I can contribute to this problem solving process. And also, when they use those knowledge, they can feel that, oh, I can actually comprehend the knowledge. I can do it and see it work. So I think it's very helpful and empowering. And okay, this is funny. They don't have to deal with negative emotions. People don't like to deal with negative emotions here. And also they can make sense of their negative emotions. So I think it's good. It's good for them. But in terms of replacing therapy, I think this is a misunderstanding and misperception. AI and psychotherapy are actually two very different things with two purposes. And most people, they kind of think one can replace another, but actually it's not. But I can talk more later.
How can LLMs support the profession of a therapist? What are the ways in which this is actually maybe beneficial for both sides?
Is AI a competitor or a support? Different people have different feelings. I don't think it's all bad. I think it's very good. It's a great assistance. But it depends on the therapeutic orientations a therapist use. For example, for cognition or guidance-based therapist, when AI happens and clients start to bring AI into the discussion, that means they have to be stronger than a database, be more professional, and or they have something to stand out that's different from the AI knowledge database. But for a relational based therapist, it's great. Now AI can help me do the writing and assessment input. Now I can spend less time on those logistic things and focus more on the relationship building. So, like for my approach, I think it's great. And they can bring that into the discussion in our sessions. It doesn't actually harm our session or relationship, it helps our relationship because I can then add on more cultural context and personal understanding because it is based on this relationship and my knowledge on the client's story. I can guide the client to see what it is and what might be different from the AI knowledge.
Can the fact that a patient is using a chatbot, can that complicate their relationship with their therapist or make the process less effective? Because I've heard of patients going to see physicians after researching their symptoms and
Mm-hmm,
often even getting a diagnosis from
mm-hmm,
let's say
mm-hmm,
ChatGPT, and they go in and say
mm-hmm,
like, oh, I think my liver is suffering from XYZ because ChatGPT told
mm-hmm.
me. Does that happen in psychotherapy when people come in and come to you and say, hey, AI told me that I'm probably depressed, for example?
Yes, yes, it happens. And I have to go back to, in psychotherapy, we have different styles and orientations of therapy. And each therapist, they can choose whatever they want. They're leaning more towards to what orientation they like. That's okay. So we have a spectrum, more intellectual orientation or relational, emotion-based orientation on two sides of the spectrum. And every therapist is on that spectrum. In Asia, cognitive cognitive-based orientation or problem-solving approaches are more popular. So how would it impact Asia? I think it would impact hugely because we a lot of therapists in Asia they use problem solving and cognitive approaches. Therefore, a lot of clients how they perceive or imagine a psychotherapy session is I bring in my problem and I get your advice and consultation and maybe bring some homework home. I can come back to tell you did it help? Did I improve? Okay, it's very problem solving and cognitive based. And therefore, they will bring what ChatGPT told them. Hey, this is what it tells me. What do you think? So, how this therapist respond is very important. If you just go into the debate or the logic, then you lose your position and power. So, here is the moment you need to guide the client or the patient to really look back what therapy is, what counseling is, and what this relationship is really about. What are we doing here, actually? Are we just to discuss the symptoms and is that all? Or are we here for some healing purposes?
So, on that note, the reactions from practitioners, what kind of reactions are you seeing among your peers, among your colleagues?
Mm.
How are therapists, psychotherapists responding and adapting to this new technology?
Well, I can't speak for every therapist, but what I see is some therapists are worried, some are not, because therapy is mainly about human contact and actual human relationship. So if a well-rounded, a well-trained therapist encounters this kind of phenomenon, he or she shouldn't be worried because we will bring the client back to this relationship and this human contact. They're here for what they cannot get from AI. It's supposed to be like that. For the profession, I don't think it's responding well. They haven't thought it through and come up with a plan yet. So people in this profession, first they need to be aware what's happening now and be prepared for that. And the most important thing is the training system needs to readjust their curriculum and how they train people into this profession to face the next decade. The profession, how they are responding to the invasive AI development, AI phenomenon is yes, they are using AI, they're discussing AI in more conventions and in classes, but a lot of things that I hear is how to organize session notes, how to use AI on simulated counseling practices. I mean, like mock interview, right? Simulated counseling sessions, or how to use AI on case formulation, on diagnosis and assessment, or how are clients using AI to think and formulate for themselves. This response, I would say, it ended up being more conditioned by the AI industry. Just like in business, every profession or every product, every company needs to have market differentiation, or they say UVP, unique value proposition. So, what's the UVP of psychotherapy? I think it's what this profession people have power, whoever have power, need to start thinking about and implement it into the training curriculum.
Do you think there will eventually be a push to regulate how chatbots respond to these kind of prompts when they start involving a person's mental health, kind of like they do when they are prompted about physical health? If you ask a chatbot now for a diagnosis, it will tell
Mm-hmm.
you, well, here's what it looks like, but you should always consult a physician. Do you
Mm-hmm.
feel that there will be a push to kind of do the same for psychotherapy? Like, hey, it might be this, might be something else, but you should still go see a professional.
Yes, yes, and some AI they do say that actually by the end of their answer. Certain things can be replaced by AI, but certain things cannot. And therapy is not just about identifying the symptoms or giving a diagnosis. That's just the beginning of things and part of the things. It's not the core, because once you have the diagnosis and you have the symptoms. The next is what caused the problem, what is the real problem, and where do we go from here. So the professional term is case conceptualization and treatment plan. I think that's more important than diagnosis. Case conceptualization is how do you see the problem? What do you think is the real problem? So a therapist's role is not just to provide whatever those textbooks or internet can provide. It's to take over, take over, and then guide the client to self-conceptualize why I'm like this and what the real problem is and where do we go from here and how do we treat it. So the treatment plan is actually the core of the discussion.
Artificial intelligence is still more artificial than intelligence, but let's
Mhm.
apply that word like we would to a human for a second. So chatbots would likely score high on linguistic intelligence. That's what they were designed to do. I would say probably arguable performance in analytical intelligence. But how do you think these systems fare in emotional intelligence?
Well, after all, it's still a computer. um, it's generated by a lot of database, a knowledge base. But we need to keep in mind is therapy is a profession that's focused on relationships and also authenticity and humanity and emotions. And so far, I don't think anything can really replace relationship and emotion regulation and corrective experiences. So I also want to talk more about what therapy is in Taiwan, because if you learn therapy theories from the West and you want to apply it in Taiwan, you will hit the wall because Taiwan is a very unique land. Okay, there's a history and there are cultural factors. So today's therapists, they need to be equipped with cultural competency or cultural sensitivity and awareness. So they cannot just have the knowledge and skill and go into work like that. They need to have a couple of things. And so what therapy is we need to apply cultural context into a client's symptom and problems. They need to be culturally attuned, and they have culturally attuned assessment ability and conceptualization abilities. A lot of problems in Taiwan, client problem, is not individual problem. It's not internal human psychic. It's actually systematic oppression. And a lot of people come into therapy, they would talk about topics. It has a lot of cultural context. For example, people talk about mother-in-law problems. They talk about their bosses. They talk about politics at work and how Taiwanese people do business. It's all very, very cultural. And so a person doesn't live in Taiwan and does business in Taiwan would not understand why this person is troubled and have this emotion. So this cultural context is something currently AI cannot replace. And one reason is that most AI we have right now are developed in the US or Western countries. So they really don't know about Taiwanese politics and Taiwanese cultures. And number two, how we do therapy in Taiwan is we are actually there to provide a corrective relational experience. Whatever we experience in childhood or earlier lives, we are here in this therapeutic relationship to provide a corrective experience. That's how they heal to begin with. And number three is in therapy, we actually work on creating emotional transformation. With no transformation, it's hard to experience healing. A healing doesn't just come from the left brain, how you comprehend thinking, a logic. You need to bring something called the emotional upward spiral. When they talk to you and go through this process, they walk away with this emotional upward spiral. They actually feel good. It's because they experience this emotional transformation. And this is not something that a person can acquire by talking to AIs. AI is artificial intelligence, but that A is actually authentic intelligence when it comes to therapy. Nowadays, we have passed the IQ era, EQ era, SQ era, SQ meaning social intelligence. Now we have come to an era that emphasizing on RQ, relational intelligence. So just imagine there's a spectrum. Artificial intelligence is on one end, but relational intelligence is on the other end. So psychotherapy, this profession, has the power and the opportunity to really balance out artificial intelligence, because what we are emphasizing here is authenticity, a different A, and also relational intelligence.
Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with me today. Evon Chiu, Taiwan-based bilingual psychotherapist and the founder of Taiwan Multicultural Counseling Association.
Thank you so much.
And that's all I have for you in this week's edition of Taiwan Tech Update. I'm your host, Tomasz Koper, and I'll be back with another update next week.